Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support this motion. There's a lot of stuff we need to talk about, tons of stuff that we need to talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about, and I think we should talk about some of that stuff. So I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that we should talk about. All right. First of all, this bill has been replaced multiple times and now is 3 times the bill that it started as. The people showed up to testify, wait in line for hours and hours and hours. A fraction of them got to testify. And then after 12 hours of testifying on one bill, the rug was yanked out, the bill was replaced and doubled. And now we've added about 50% again. We already talked about last time how one word changed it, going from yearly funding to annually appropriated continuously, because there is nothing so permanent as a temporary government program. So let's talk a little bit about what the sponsor had to say. 1 in 15 people in our country have been present at the scene of a mass shooting. That means 22 million people in the United States have been present at a mass shooting. That's about 4 Colorados. That sounds a little duplicitous to me, but it's something that's thrown out there for the emotionally manipulable. All right, gun violence is the #1 cause of death of children.
Representative DeGraff, be cautious about how you are referring to other members in the statements at the well, not to impugn their motives or their intentions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, feticide is the #1 death of children, nearly 3,000 per day in the United States, 200,000 per day in the world. That's approximately 1 million children.
Representative DeGraff, back to the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. But I'm talking about what the sponsors have said. The sponsors have said things that are clearly in error, and they were not checked. At least 8 out of 10, the highest mass casualty shootings involve semi-automatic weapons. And so here again, we get to the actual part of the bill. This bill is about semi-automatic weapons, not gas-powered semi-automatic weapons. Gas-powered semi-automatic weapons is just something that's in there to make it sound scary. It's a matter of the difference of operating with compressed gases via a gas siphon system versus a blowback system is a matter of type, not kind. This is going after. Now, what is the example of a typical gas operated? Well, of course, that's the AR15. This is another assault weapons ban. It's going after something, and it's trying to classify it using the Bruin language to say this is uniquely dangerous, that a gas-powered firearm, which is all of them, because all of them, the bullets are expelled using the expansion of gases. They're all gas-powered. And if you look at it, of course, the bill allows for the expansion of that language. If you do not complete the permitting, what we're talking about is the permissive state again, the nanny state, the permitting and asking the state. Again, why do we have the Second Amendment? We have the Second Amendment for the 5th that in the Declaration of Independence that talks about if we become under a tyrannical government. This is to prevent a tyrannical government. And the Second Amendment works in the prevention of tyrannical governments. And I'll talk about that in a little bit because we should talk about it because we didn't.
Representative DeGraff, we should be talking about the bill at some point. Right now we're talking about the motion to refer to seconds. I want to give you latitude here. Please draw your statements back to the motion before us.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just talking about some of the things that we should talk about in second readings, which is why we should be. So I'm talking about the things that we talked about. We should talk about how in 2013 we passed a magazine limit of 15 rounds, and today we're here because that's never really enforced. Okay, so we took an unenforceable law that was unconstitutional, and instead of dealing with that law, now the sponsors want to expand it beyond anything that was ever intended. Again, the solution to bad legislation is worse legislation in this body. A semi-automatic gun with a detached magazine. It doesn't say a gas-powered gun. It doesn't say a gas-powered semi-automatic. It says a semi-automatic gun with a gas-powered magazine. The sponsors' Freudian slips are telling you what this bill is about. That allows for an unlimited amount of ammunition. Unlimited. I guess if you have magazines, you can take, so you are limited. And what you're limited mostly by is the human condition, and that would be something that we should probably get back to. Why do we have an increase in the rate of deaths? Does it have anything to do with the state and creating fatherlessness in the home? Does it? We don't know, because we're not talking about that sort of stuff. But let's talk about some of the things that we should talk about. All right. An unarmed person, an unarmed man can only flee from evil, and evil is not overcome by fleeing from it. So let's talk about political violence. When the party of political violence tells me I don't need a gun, I think I need a gun. And we ought to look at things like lynching that was supported by FDR through all 4 terms. 17, let's see, what is it, 4,743 deaths? 3,446 deaths? Yes.
If the motion before us is to refer the bill back to seconds, I would prefer that I will ask that you keep your comments to the content of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm talking about why the sponsor brought this bill forward in the first place and says it's due to safety. But let's talk about the safety. Let's talk about safety, and let's talk about political violence. We went out of 24 deaths, $1 billion to $2 billion worth of damage. That could have been protected possibly by people who have guns, but we're not going to talk about that. We need to talk about things like Murdoch versus Pennsylvania. A municipal ordinance that's construed to apply requires payments and license to pursue their constitutional rights. A state may not impose a charge for the enjoyment of a right granted by the federal Constitution. This is fees and taxes to enjoy a right. The flat license here restrains in advance the constitutional liberties. You are constrained in the exercise of your constitutional liberties, 24 pages worth. Is that going to stand up? That the ordinance is non-discriminatory is immaterial. The liberties guaranteed in the Second Amendment are in the preferred position. So we need to talk about that as this constitutionality. Besides the $50 million, which is probably only a tenth of what it is of unfunded mandates, what are the lawsuits going to cost? What are the lawsuits going to cost the citizens of Colorado? SB 03 is an incredibly fiscally and functional, convoluted and duplicitous bill. It's tripled. In its effort to bring it down a few faces on the totem pole of radicalism are just making it more complicated. So let's talk about what did the sponsor do? The sponsors linked it to that these types of firearms were uniquely dangerous because they need to use the wording of Bruin. The gas mechanism in both are different in type, not kind. So what makes it? So this is again an assault on the AR, the AR15, the Nemesis of the Democrat Party for some reason. This isn't.
Representative DeGraff.
Yes, ma'am.
Again. And my final ask.
Okay. When we look at the reason that the sponsor stated for this bill, we also can look at that, well, we could look at that about 95% of the people in Colorado do not want this bill. The stakeholding, the sheriffs don't want it, the municipalities don't want it. A handful of very partisan activist groups want it. And this is all why we need to talk about what's going on with this bill. We need to have it go back to second so we can talk about these things. This is not a bill that represents Coloradans. This is a bill that represents a handful of activist groups. That's it. So let's talk about, because the sponsor brought it up, that said these are things that we need to talk about. We should talk about these things in our conversation on seconds. The first mass shooting in the United States happened in a school, and that was back in 1764 when the Lenape Indians killed a schoolmaster and 10 children. But then we can go on and let's look at what these things have in common. Is it
DeGraff,
gas-powered? Yes, ma'am.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Gun-free zone, 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 gun-free zone. Especially the Boulder had a no weapons policy. That was